Welcome to the R programming part 4, and here we are going to start with our workspace management. So basically what we do here is that if you want to display all the content in the current workspace on the screen of your R, then you use this function ls bracket. So it will display all the content, all the variables or whatever files they are present in this current in your current workspace. Suppose you want to remove a variable or different variables, you can use this function rm. In the bracket, mention the name of the rm of that particular variable without any quotation mark. Then let's say you want to view the current working directory, or you want to set a new working directory. So what you can do is you can use this function get wd bracket. This will display the current working directory. If you want to set a new working directory, then you use this function set wd. In the bracket, provide the uh, path of the directory with the quotation mark. And one thing you need to remember here is it works with either single forward slash or double backward slash. So when you're providing the path, either use the single forward slash or double backward slash, then it will work, otherwise it will throw error. Now if you want to display all the files present in your current working directory, then you can use this function list.files and the double bracket. So there are different data types which we have already seen, but what we are going to focus here in this presentation is the three mainly these two data types, because we have already worked on metrics in the earlier video, uh, data frame and list. But you might wonder that data types are something like numeric, integers, logical, character, etc. That is true in a generic sense, but for data science project, we need to fetch the data or retrieve the data from files or server in a particular format. And in R, we generally use a data frame, matrix, or list. So we will see what these, we know, or we already know what matrix is. We will see what data frame and list are in the next slide, the future slides. So data frame. So what is data frame? Basically, data frame is quite similar to CSV files, and these data frames basically store different variable types in columns. Now, although there is no restriction on the variable type, what it means is the first variable could be in first column in the data frame could be your a character variable, second column could be integer variable or numeric variable, third could be a logical variable, and so on and so forth. But they, all these variables have to be related to one another. That's very important point here. Now how to read a file in a data frame? So if it is a CSV file, you use this function read.csv. In the bracket, in double quotation mark, write the name of the file with its extension CSV. So it will read the file from the current working directory. In case you are reading from a different different directory, if you want to read the file, then you need to provide the whole path before the file name. So this is indexing. If you want to read the value in the first column and first row, or first row and second column, then you can use this. This is kind of indexing here. Or you can if you want to display the all the values elements in a particular variable, you can use this $sign, and so name the data frame $sign, name the variable, and it will display all the elements and values in that particular variable. Suppose you want to see the name of all the variables, all the columns, then you use this function names, and in the bracket mention the name of the data frame. Suppose you want to display the first 6 rows along with the header in the data frame, then you use this function head and the bracket name of the data frame. Suppose you want to display the last rows along with the header of the data frame, then you use this tail function. In the bracket you mention the name of data frame. So another data type is list. And what is list? Basically it stores different variable types. It's a collection of different variable types. Now just like data frame, this also contains variables of different types, like one variable could be numeric, another logical, and yet another character. However, unlike data frame, these these variables need not be related to one another. In data frame, they must be related to one another, but in this list, they need not be related to one another. Let's look at one example here. So I have created three variables here: life expectancy 70, earthquake, true false, disease, cancer, fever, and corona. Now, how to create a list? You can just use this function list, and in the bracket you put the names of all the variables and it will create a list. If you want to see the class of any variable, you use this function class, and in the bracket mention the name of the variable. It will display the class of that variable. Suppose you want to see the class of a variable in the list, then you use double bracket and 1, and it will the name of the sorry, number of the variable, and it will display the class of that particular variable. This is another way of creating lists where you are assigning names to each variable. So you can write the name of each variable in double quotation marks, and this way it will create a list with the variable along with their names. So this is another way of displaying a particular variable in the list. So either you use $sign. If you have only assigned the name, you can use this method. Otherwise, you'll have to use this double bracket method to display the variable. Now let's look at the file management in R. So there are basically three types of files which are used in R. There are many, but we will focus on these main three files: CSV file, script, and workspace. Now, what is CSV? It is comma separated values file, and it stores text data, and it's very easy to use, and its extension is .csv. Now, what is script? So basically R offers us an option to save our codes and commands that we have written in the screen, and which it can be stored and then executed later. So let's say we have written certain codes and commands and we want to execute them later. So it allows us to store them as .r capital R or .small r file. Now we can also store workspace files. So R again offers us an option to save the entire workspace that contains the variables, files, codes, etc., etc. So we can do that using this particular option, and the extension of that particular file is .r data. So let's look at how to save and retrieve files in R. Suppose you want to save the entire workspace, you can use the save.image function in the bracket. Just this argument requires a name of the file, so you just whatever name you like to choose. For example, I've used a file name as .r data, but you can use any name. .r data is the extension. Suppose you want to save only few variables from the workspace, so then you use this function save, and then provide the file name, and in the list this argument provide the names of those variables in quotation marks, and you will save only those variables. Suppose you want to load that particular workspace that you saved earlier in the current R workspace or screen. So what you do is you just provide the name of that file. For example, we saved here the workspace. Now we want to retrieve the same workspace in the later session, so we can use this function load and then provide the name of that workspace, and it will retrieve the entire workspace. Or if you are using this name, so it will retrieve only those variables depending on what you are trying to retrieve and use in R. Now if you want to read a CSV file, we have already used this in the past, but so you use this read.csv file and name of the file. If you true header, if you want to read the header as well along with the data values, so you need to mention true here. In case you don't want the header, you want to give your own header later on, so you can put false here and it will only read the value. Suppose you want to write a particular file or a table which you have created in your workspace, and you want to save that particular table or data in CSV format. So you can use this function called write.csv, name of that variable which contains all the data, and then the name under which you want to save this CSV file. And you can, this row.name argument is basically whether you want to retain the name of the rows or you don't want to retain. If you don't want to retain, then FF stands for false, T stands for true. Now if you want to read a text file, so this function you can use read.table and the file name, and then header true or false. Now in this there are options, other argument, which is sep. Suppose the text in the text file the values are separated by space, you don't need to mention this. If they're separated by tab delimited, then you need to mention, because by default it is a space. If it is delimited, tab delimited or comma separated, then you need to mention this argument also inside this. If it is tab delimited, then this option. If it is comma separated, then this option. Suppose you want to skip a few lines while reading this text file, then you can use this argument inside this and mention the name of the first the lines that you want to. Let's if you want to miss that skip 10 lines, then it will skip first 10 lines and then start reading. Thank you so much for spending your time on this presentation. I hope you found this presentation useful, and in case you like this presentation, please like, share and subscribe. Thank you.